In John 14:6, we see one of the most exclusive statements that Jesus ever made. In it, Jesus claims to be the source for truth and life, and that anybody else claiming to be so is a liar. And this is a challenging but also a encouraging verse that I think will make an impact on your life and faith. And so in this video, we're going to take a look at this claim and see how it applies to our lives today. Let's start by looking at what John 14:6 says. I am the way, the truth, and the life. No one comes to the Father except through me. I want to start by looking at the context in which we find this statement. You see, Jesus is in his final days on earth. Soon he will be tried and crucified, and he's trying to prepare his disciples for what's coming next. But they're confused. They're not understanding what's happening. So they're asking all these questions. And eventually Thomas asks this question like, Lord, where are you going? He just comes out and says that, where are you going? We want to go with you. They just did not understand what Jesus had to do and what it was going to mean for them. And in response to this question is this statement in John 14:6. And Jesus is trying to show them the way that they should go. And I think what Jesus says next is not just applicable to the disciples 2,000 years ago. I think it has high importance for us today. So let's take a look at what this verse means. Jesus starts off this verse by saying, I am the way, the truth, and the life. And each of these are a series of exclusive statements. And I want to take a brief look at each of them. The first one is I am. Now, all throughout the Bible, this was a name that God used for himself. It was a name of power and of authority, saying that I am in all things, I was before all things, I created all things, I will exist after all things. And Jesus here is applying that name to himself. He's claiming to be God. And the religious leaders understood this because on one occasion they picked up stones to kill him. They understood that Jesus was claiming to be God. And what we see in this piece is that Jesus is saying, I have all the power and all the authority. I am. And he continues by saying, I am the way. And notice, he's not saying he's a way. He's not saying he's the best way. He's saying he is the way, the only way. In other words, there is no other way to true life. He's saying he is the way, and all the other ways are false. And next he says that he is the truth. And again, notice, he's not saying he's a truth. He's not saying he's one of many truths. He is the truth. He is the final authority on what is true. And lastly, he says, I am the life. And just like the other ones, he's not saying he's a source of life. He's saying he's the source of life. In other words, if you want what Jesus is offering, you have to go to him. There is no other way. And Jesus ends this verse by saying that no one can go to the Father except through him. Again, this is one of the most exclusive verses. He's saying if you want eternal life, if that's what you're after, it is found nowhere else, in no one else. The only way that you and I can get eternal life is by trusting in Jesus, by following him. Anybody else claiming that they can provide for you eternal life is a liar. Jesus is the way, the truth, and the life. And no one will get to the Father except through him. In John 14:6, Jesus makes these exclusive statements, but it's important that we note where they come from, because they come from a place of love. What Jesus wants for us is good life, full of peace and joy and happiness. And if it's true that Jesus is the only way, it wouldn't be loving for him to say that you can go somewhere else. What Jesus wants is for us to go to him, because in him, true life is found. And what Jesus is trying to do for his disciples and for us today is to point them in the direction of true life. And so to end, I want to help you apply this verse to your life and faith. And so I want to give you 3 questions that you can think about and ask yourself, are you truly following Jesus? Because I think these will help you apply this verse to your life in faith. And the first question is this: what direction is my life heading? You see, many of us, we go through life without even really questioning, where are we going? What direction are we going in? What do we want out of life? And what direction do I need to go to get there? And so I want to challenge you to ask yourself, what direction are you going? Because what Jesus is offering you is love, joy, peace, patience, kindness, goodness, self-control. And if you want those kinds of things, because that's what Jesus says the good life is found in, you have to go towards Him. So what direction is your life going? Are you going towards the things Jesus says, or are you going your own direction? Take a moment to think about what direction your life is heading in. The second question is, where do I get my truth from? Listen, there's so many voices in our culture, in our world around us, that are vying for our attention. There's no end of voices and videos and articles that you can read that tell you some kind of truth. But what Jesus is saying He is the truth. And so we need to evaluate our lives. Where are we getting our truth from? What sources do we look at for truth? And look at the beliefs you have. Look at the direction you take in your life and ask yourself, where is the truth coming from? Is it coming from the things God says, or is it coming from some other source? The last question is this: what do I need to have a good life? And listen, don't give the altruistic answer. Don't just say, well, I just need Jesus and I'll be happy. Look at your life, look at your decisions, look at your dreams, look at what you think about, look at what you chase after. What does that reveal in you? Because if you're like me, oftentimes in my life, if I'm not asking myself this question, if I'm not being careful, I often chase after things other than Jesus, because it reveals in me that to be happy, I think I need Jesus plus this other thing over here. And the problem is, when I pursue this other thing, when I think I need this thing to be happy, what happens is it ends up actually taking away from me the joy that God has for me. And I don't end up being happy or content. I end up being miserable. You see, the reality is, when we chase after something other than Jesus, we don't get what we hope we get. It takes life from us. It doesn't give life to us. And so I would challenge you to evaluate your life and ask yourself, what is it that I truly think I need to be happy? And if you discover something apart from what Jesus says, give that back to Him so that you can grab a hold of the life that He has for you. You see, this I am statement that Jesus is the way, the truth, and the life, this is pointing us to what is most important in life. And I would encourage you to evaluate these three questions so that you can grab a hold of what God has for you, because He has something infinitely better than anything else you can find in this world. Go to Him, because He is the source of life, of truth, and He will point you in the right direction. Thank you so much for watching this video. I hope that it challenged and encouraged you to look to Jesus for your source of life. If it did, would you leave a comment down below letting me know your thoughts? And also, don't forget to subscribe to this channel so that you can stay up to date on future content that's coming out. Thanks for watching. We'll see you next time.